When you think of Buddhism, you might picture serene monks meditating in remote monasteries, far removed from the world's turmoil. But for Nichiren Buddhists, the path to enlightenment runs right through the heart of society's struggles. They don't see social engagement as a distraction from spiritual practice. They see it as the practice itself. This approach isn't new, it's woven into the very fabric of their tradition. Nearly 800 years ago, in 13th century Japan, the monk Nichiren looked out at a land ravaged by natural disasters, political corruption, and social unrest. Instead of retreating to the mountains, he plunged into the chaos. He wrote fiery letters to government officials, debated religious leaders in public, and even faced exile for his activism. Why? Because for Nichiren, Buddhism wasn't just about personal peace, it was about transforming society. In his famous work, on establishing the correct teaching for the peace of the land, he declared, "If you care anything about your personal security, you should first of all pray for order and tranquility throughout the 4 quarters of the land." This wasn't just advice, it was a spiritual mandate. Your own enlightenment, Nichiren taught, is inseparable from the well-being of your community. Fast forward to the 20th century, and we see this spirit blazing anew in Tsunasaburo Makaguchi. In 1930s Japan, as militarism and thought control tightened their grip, many religious groups fell in line. But Makaguchi, inspired by Nichiren's example, did the opposite. He openly criticized the regime's war efforts and its co-opting of Shinto for nationalist aims. His resistance wasn't just political, it was deeply spiritual. Makaguchi believed that true happiness comes from creating value, beauty, benefit, and goodness in both individual lives and society. War, in his view, destroyed this value on a massive scale. So he saw opposing militarism not as a side activity but as essential Buddhist practice. The price was high. In 1943, at the age of 72, Makaguchi was imprisoned for thought crimes. His disciple, Josei Toda, was jailed with him. Many members of their group recanted under pressure. But Makaguchi and Toda refused. Even in his cell, even as his health failed, Makaguchi continued to talk about Buddhism and value creation. He died in prison, his last days spent not in quiet meditation but in active resistance. Toda survived and emerged from prison transformed. In his nearly 2 years of confinement, much of it in solitary, he chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo relentlessly. This practice led him to a profound realization that the Buddha nature exists in all people, regardless of nationality or ideology. Even his jailers, even those who'd killed his mentor, all were inherently Buddhas. This insight became the cornerstone of Nichiren Buddhism's post-war activism. As Toda rebuilt the organization, he instilled in its members a passion for peace based not on political calculation but on recognizing everyone's Buddha nature. In 1957, at a youth rally, he made a historic call: "I want you to inherit the declaration I am about to make. To expose and rip out the claws that lie hidden in the very soul of nuclear weapons." For Toda, nuclear weapons weren't just a military threat. They were a spiritual abomination, a denial of humanity's divine potential. By ripping out their claws, he didn't mean just banning the weapons. He meant uprooting the fear, mistrust, and dehumanization that make such weapons thinkable. This was Buddhism in action, confronting society's deepest ills by invoking its highest truths. Daisaku Ikeda, who witnessed Toda's declaration as a young man, has spent his life expanding this vision globally. Under his leadership, Nichiren Buddhism has become a major force for peace, culture, and education worldwide. But for Ikeda, this work isn't separate from Buddhism, it's Buddhism itself. In his book, For the Sake of Peace, Ikeda writes, "The heart of Nichiren Buddhism is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, the fundamental law of life." Peace work, for us, is bringing this law to life in global affairs. Nuclear disarmament, environmental protection, human rights, these aren't add-ons to our practice. They're manifestations of it. This approach shapes Nichiren Buddhism's many initiatives. Take their anti-nuclear campaign, which has gathered over 10 million signatures for disarmament treaties. Or their ecological efforts, like the Seeds of Hope exhibition that's toured 40 countries, inspiring local environmental projects. Or their human rights advocacy, partnering with the UN to promote education in gender equality and minority rights. For Nichiren Buddhism members, joining these campaigns isn't optional charity, it's spiritual training. When we petition for nuclear disarmament, Akeda explains, we're not just advocating policy. We're chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with our actions, affirming every person's Buddha nature in the most tangible way. Similarly, planting trees or teaching about consent isn't just good citizenship. It's a physical extension of one's daily chanting, a way to make Nam Myoho Renge Kyo visible and audible in society's fabric. But Nichiren Buddhists don't just engage in global campaigns. Much of their humanitarian work happens personally, locally, often invisibly. This grassroots focus comes straight from Nichiren Daishonen's example. Though he criticized national policies, his day-to-day life was filled with individual kindnesses, encouraging a grieving widow, supporting an impoverished samurai, writing letters to uplift distant disciples. For Nichiren, each such act was Buddhism in motion. As he wrote to the lay nun Senichi, white rice offered to the Buddha turns into golden-hued amrita, heavenly nectar. Water offered to the sutra becomes the wonderful medicine that cures all ills. His point? Any act of compassion, however small, when infused with Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, becomes spiritually potent. That bowl of rice, that cup of water, each is transformed into something that can nourish a person's deepest self. Today's Nichiren Buddhists carry this spirit into countless personal encounters. In Mumbai, a Nichiren Buddhism member might spend her lunch breaks teaching slum children to read, seeing each lesson as an offering of wonderful medicine. In Chicago, a member recovering from addiction leads support groups, his own story becoming the rice turned golden that nourishes others' recovery. A high school student in Tokyo, after being bullied, starts an after-school dialogue club, transforming her pain into a platform for understanding. These aren't just nice gestures, they're Nam Myoho Renge Kyo in action. Every time you truly listen to someone, says Brazilian Nichiren Buddhism leader Luis Ferreira, you're bowing to the Buddha in them. Each word of encouragement is an offering at their heart's altar. This is how neighborhoods change, not by grand plans, but moment by moment, life by life. Sometimes, Nichiren Buddhist social engagement means reimagining traditional roles. Take elder care, a growing issue globally. Many see the aging as burdens. But inspired by Nichiren's teaching that copper wheels give the appearance of old age, suggesting wisdom, Nichiren Buddhism launched the Golden Third Stage initiative. It encourages seniors to see retirement not as decline but as a third youth, rich with chances to mentor, create, and inspire. In earthquake-hit Kobe or tsunami-ravaged Tohoku, this meant older members becoming community anchors, their resilience forged by past hardships now supporting younger survivors. In U.S. cities, it's meant retired teachers running literacy programs in areas failed by underfunded schools. Such projects reflect Akeda's belief that every gray hair, every line on your face is a qualification, not a disqualification. Society desperately needs the copper wisdom that only long lives can forge. Another distinctive aspect of Nichiren Buddhist social engagement is its emphasis on individual empowerment. Many humanitarian efforts focus on providing aid, food, medicine, shelter. These are vital. But Nichiren's followers, while engaging in such work, add a unique dimension. They focus heavily on helping people tap their inner strength, especially through sharing their practice. This approach comes straight from Nichiren's letters. Writing to a disciple facing government persecution, he stated, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is like the roar of a lion. What sickness can therefore be an obstacle? To Nichiren, chanting wasn't just comfort. It was a tool for facing and transforming any challenge. Today's members embody this spirit in crisis zones worldwide. After Haiti's devastating 2010 earthquake, Nichiren Buddhism volunteers didn't just distribute supplies. They also organized outdoor chanting sessions, teaching survivors Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Many Haitians, moved by the practice's power, continued long after the Nichiren Buddhism members left. As one local put it, "The food helps us live, but this chant it helps us want to live." Similarly, during Brazil's COVID-19 surges, Nichiren Buddhism Brazil launched online hope sessions. Members battling the virus chanted with worldwide participants, sharing experiences afterward. A nurse in Sao Paulo reflected, "Chanting with others reminded me, I'm not a mere victim. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo makes me a healer, even as I'm being healed." Such initiatives reflect Nichiren Buddhism's core belief that every person, regardless of circumstances, has access to transformative inner power. This focus on individual potential also shapes Nichiren Buddhists' approach to systemic issues like poverty or discrimination. They engage in policy advocacy and provide direct aid, but their unique contribution is helping people reframe their stories. As Kenyan Nichiren Buddhism leader Mwangi Nyunjiri says, material support is crucial. But if you see yourself only as poor or oppressed, even with food and shelter, you're still trapped. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo lets you see beyond labels. You're not defined by lack. You're a Buddha actualizing wisdom through challenges. In U.S. prisons, this translates to programs where Nichiren Buddhism members not only support inmates' basic needs but also introduce them to chanting. The effect can be profound. One prisoner in Texas shared, "Society sees my number, my crime. But chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, I contact something deeper, a worth that no sentence can erase." Many such inmates, upon release, become community leaders, their experiences becoming gold that enriches society. This individual-to-society connection reflects another of Nichiren's key ideas. Discussing the Lotus Sutra's wheel-turning kings, he explains that their four wheels signify the Buddha's acts of enabling all persons to open, show, awaken to, and enter the Buddha wisdom. Note the progression. Personal opening leads to showing others, which sparks wider awakening, ultimately transforming the entire human realm. Akeda often cites civil rights activist Rosa Parks as embodying this process. Her individual act keeping her bus seat opened her to her own dignity. This inspired her to show others their worth, awakening a community to its rights. That local stirring entered America's conscience, then rippled globally. In that moment, Akeda writes, Rosa Parks wasn't just acting for herself. Somehow, she was channeling the dignity of all people, everywhere. That's Nam Myoho Renge Kyo in action, one person's Buddha nature calling out to humanities. We see similar ripple effects in Nichiren Buddhism's cultural initiatives. Take its international art exchanges, where children from different conflict zones, Israel and Palestine, India and Pakistan, create artwork together. On one level, it's kids sharing crayons. But through Nichiren's lens, it's young Buddhas using beauty to awaken each other, seeding peace in the world's most volatile soils. Or consider Nichiren Buddhism's touring exhibitions like Seeds of Hope and Nuclear Weapons, from a culture of violence to a culture of peace. These aren't just displays, they're designed as activators. A photo of Chernobyl's aftermath, a painting by a Hiroshima survivor, each piece aims to resonate with a viewer's Buddha nature, turning passive observation into a call for action. Even Nichiren Buddhism's musical performances, whether by the Min-On Concert Association in Tokyo or local youth bands, are seen as more than entertainment. Drawing on Nichiren's insight that our lives are a single eternal symphony, these events aim to synchronize audience and performers in Nam Myoho Renge Kyo's rhythm. A jazz improvisation in New York or a taiko drumming in Osaka becomes a sonic blueprint for harmonious society. This holistic approach extends to Nichiren Buddhism's disaster responses. After Japan's 2011 tsunami, Nichiren Buddhism didn't just provide immediate relief. They launched the long-term Nichiren Buddhism Global Action program, integrating physical rebuilding with spiritual resilience. Architect members redesigned homes to be safer. Artists worked with children to process trauma through creativity. Discussion meetings became forums for reimagining towns' futures. In disaster's wake, Akeda explains, people often feel uprooted, their stories disrupted. Our work is more than restoring buildings, it's restoring narratives. Through community dialogue, through cultural expression, we help people see their struggles as part of a longer human drama. In this light, even tsunami debris can become building blocks for a more compassionate civilization. Such efforts reflect what Nichiren scholar Masahiro Shimoda calls prophetic reconstruction. She argues, in Nichiren's thought, disasters aren't just physical events. They're symptoms of humanity's spiritual state. So rebuilding isn't just a material task. It's a way to rewrite our shared story, turning a tale of chaos into a chronicle of awakening. Perhaps the most direct expression of this prophetic activism is Nichiren Buddhism's global citizenship education. Rooted in Makaguchi's theory of value creation and Toda's prison-born humanism, these programs go beyond teaching facts. We're not just informing minds, says an SGI educator in India. We're invoking Buddha nature. A lesson on climate change isn't merely data. It's an invitation to see your connection to all life. Studying human rights isn't just learning laws. It's recognizing the Sage King's golden wheel in every person. Such education reflects Nichiren's broader view of life phases. He didn't just see birth, aging, illness, and death as individual stages but as aspects of existence itself. Similarly, Nichiren Buddhism's programs treat topics like peace and ecology not as separate issues but as facets of humanity's collective life. Climate change is our species' illness phase. Learning to steward resources wisely is our coming of age. In all these endeavors, disaster response, cultural exchange, global education, Nichiren Buddhists aren't just doing good works alongside their spiritual practice. They're manifesting that practice in the world, turning each project into a vast mandala of awakening potential. As Akeda puts it, society's challenges are like great bells, fashioned by causes yet unrung. Our every act of compassion, each effort for peace, these are the strikes that make those bells resound with Nam Myoho Renge Kyo's eternal tone. So, in Nichiren Buddhism, social engagement isn't an afterthought or a mere application of spiritual principles. It's the living breath of those principles, the dynamic space where individual awakenings and humanity's shared enlightenment continuously shape each other. Whether planting hope in disaster zones, cultivating peace through art, or seeding wisdom in young minds, Nichiren Buddhists see each action as a brushstroke in history's largest painting, a collaborative masterpiece depicting all people, all life, increasingly aglow with Buddha nature. In this light, serving others isn't charity, it's prophecy. Teaching isn't just education, it's invoking latent truth. Even enjoying music or art together is a tuning fork for humanity's grand symphony. Through every such engagement, Nichiren Buddhists aren't just awaiting a better world. They're actively midwifing it, using Nam Myoho Renge Kyo as both the affirming mantra and the transformative medium. In their view, society's awakening isn't a distant ideal, it's an ongoing birth, and every compassionate act is another nurturing contraction, easing all life toward its destined luminosity. This profound intertwining of personal practice and social engagement in Nichiren Buddhism raises a challenging question: how do practitioners maintain their spiritual focus amidst the world's tumult? After all, diving into societal issues, poverty, war, environmental crises means constantly facing human suffering. Couldn't such exposure lead to burnout, despair, or a dilution of one's Buddhist practice? Nichiren Daishonin addressed this concern head-on, particularly when advising disciples who faced severe persecution. In his letter, The Dragon Gate, he writes, "The sutra passages you have questioned signify that when we compare our sufferings to those of the Buddha, we find that they are not even 1 part in a billion. This isn't a call to minimize our struggles but to contextualize them within a vaster spiritual narrative." Nichiren continues, Shakyamuni Buddha was given the name Shakya, deriving from the words for capable and benevolent. Now, however humble a person you may be, if you chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you are following in the footsteps of the Buddha, great universal wisdom excellence. In essence, he's saying that when we engage with the world's pain through our Buddhist practice, we're not being overwhelmed by suffering, we're participating in an ancient, ongoing work of compassion. Daisaku Ikeda elaborates on this point in his book, The Human Revolution. When we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo while working for peace or fighting poverty, we're not just confronting today's problems. We're continuing a dialogue that began under the Bodhi tree, where Shakyamuni Buddha faced the fundamental question of human suffering. Our social activism is another turn in this timeless conversation. This long-term perspective helps practitioners see beyond immediate setbacks or slow progress. A Nichiren Buddhist working in Palestinian refugee camps might not see a political solution in her lifetime. But as she chants Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with camp residents, she knows she's adding a crucial verse to humanity's multi-generational song of dignity. A Nichiren Buddhism member lobbying for climate laws might face years of legislative gridlock. But in sharing the Seeds of Hope exhibition, he's planting Buddhism's eternal truth. Plants, trees, and the land itself will manifest their true nature in society's consciousness. Another source of resilience comes from Nichiren's teaching about the oneness of body and mind. In his treatise, The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, he states, "Life at each moment is endowed with the 10 worlds. At the same time, each of the 10 worlds contains all 10 within itself. Life at each moment functions as a harmonious whole." This isn't abstract philosophy, it's practical psychology. When we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, we're not dividing ourselves into a spiritual self that chants and a social self that works in the world. We're engaging as whole beings, where inner peace and outer action constantly refresh each other. A Nichiren Buddhism nurse treating COVID patients doesn't compartmentalize her practice. Her morning chanting energizes her hospital shifts. Her compassionate care deepens her evening prayers. Josei Toda, who rebuilt Nichiren Buddhism after his prison ordeal, embodied this principle. Despite facing poverty, health issues, and lingering societal prejudices, he worked tirelessly to spread Nichiren's teachings. How did he sustain this? His diary reveals, "Each person I meet, each problem I tackle, these aren't burdens separate from my Buddhism. They're my practice incarnate, my Nam Myoho Renge Kyo taking physical form. So the more I engage, the more deeply I'm practicing." Furthermore, Nichiren Buddhism sees social engagement not just as an expression of practice but as spiritual nourishment itself. This idea is rooted in Nichiren's interpretation of a key Lotus Sutra passage about the bodhisattvas who emerge from the earth. The sutra describes them as having firm strength and will, inconceivable powers. They have deeply cultivated and practiced the unexcelled practices of the bodhisattva way. Traditional commentaries saw these bodhisattvas as celestial beings. But Nichiren offers a radical reinterpretation. In The True Aspect of All Phenomena, he states, "The earth from which these bodhisattvas emerge is none other than our own heart ground. Their firm strength and will is our determination and faith. Their inconceivable powers are the power of our daily practice." Most strikingly, he equates their deep cultivation with social engagement. That they have deeply cultivated and practiced means they have persevered through life's trials, through poverty, through illness, through conflict, all while chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. In this light, wrestling with society's problems isn't a distraction from Buddhist practice. It's the very soil that nurtures our Buddha nature. Ikeda often cites Nelson Mandela as exemplifying this principle. During his 27 years in prison, Mandela didn't just survive. He turned his incarceration into a crucible for developing wisdom, courage, and compassion. Upon release, these qualities enabled him to guide South Africa from apartheid to democracy without massive bloodshed. Mandela's story, Ikeda writes, echoes the Lotus Sutra's underground bodhisattvas. His earth was a prison cell. His cultivation was decades of hard labor, punctuated by Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. From this soil, he emerged not bitter or vengeful, but with inconceivable powers, the ability to forgive, to unite, to see humanity even in his oppressors. Nichiren Buddhism USA member Jan Everhart had a similar experience during her years working with terminally ill children. Many asked how she avoided burnout. Her response: "I don't see my work as separate from my Buddhist practice. Each child's struggle is like the earthen floor where I kneel to chant. Their courage, their family's love, these are bodhisattvas emerging, teaching me the preciousness of each moment. I'm not giving energy, I'm receiving wisdom." Another sustaining factor is Nichiren Buddhism's view of time, particularly in relation to the concept of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life. This principle, central to the school's philosophy, suggests that every instant contains all possible states of existence. Consequently, even in dark times, the potential for enlightenment is always immediately present. Nichiren scholar Masao Kobayashi explains, in quantum mechanics, a particle can be in multiple states simultaneously until measured. Similarly, in Nichiren's thought, each moment holds every possibility, hell and Buddhahood, war and peace, until our measurement, our choice, collapses it into one reality. This means that even in a world crisis, the quantum wave function of peace never vanishes. It's there, waiting for enough observers to choose it. Nichiren Buddhism's disaster relief work reflects this understanding. After the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, many saw only decades of contamination and despair. But local Nichiren Buddhism members, chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, chose to observe a different possibility. They started organic farms on unaffected lands, creating a model of sustainable renewal. One member shared, "Each time we chant, we're not just hoping for recovery. We're actualizing it here and now, from the infinite potentials in this moment." Moreover, Nichiren Buddhism sees social engagement as a way to fulfill and extend the enlightenment of past figures. When discussing the Lotus Sutra's wheel-turning kings, Nichiren Daishonin explains that their wheels symbolize how the Buddha enables all people to open, show, awaken to, and enter wisdom. Today's practitioners see their activism as continuing this process. A young Nichiren Buddhism member in America, working to reform the criminal justice system, puts it this way: "When I visit prisons and chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with inmates, I'm not just doing my own thing. I'm extending Shakyamuni's compassion, Nichiren's courage, Makaguchi's educational vision. Through my actions, their enlightenment keeps unfolding, keeps liberating lives." This sense of participating in an ongoing, cosmic narrative gives Nichiren Buddhists remarkable stamina. A Nichiren Buddhism climate activist might face years of policy gridlock without despair because she sees herself as part of the Dragon King's Daughters' multi-lifetime journey toward enlightenment. An anti-nuclear campaigner stays motivated despite slow progress, knowing he's continuing Josei Toda's vow to rip out the claws of these weapons. Perhaps most fundamentally, Nichiren Buddhists find resilience in their view of the relationship between individual and environment. Many traditions see the world's problems as external challenges that drain our inner resources. But in Nichiren's framework, based on his interpretation of the Lotus Sutra, there is no real separation between self and surroundings. As he states in The Opening of the Eyes, life at each moment encompasses both body and spirit and both self and environment of all sentient beings in every condition of life, as well as non-sentient beings, plants, sky, earth, and even molecules. In this view, our environment with all its joys and sorrows isn't something external. It's an extension of ourselves, another expression of our life force. So when a Nichiren Buddhist engages with the world's suffering, be it poverty, discrimination, or environmental degradation, they're not reaching outside themselves. They're working with another part of their extended self. A Nichiren Buddhism doctor treating refugees in Syria isn't being drained by others' traumas. She's healing a part of her own life's tapestry. A member cleaning up an oil-spilled beach isn't battling an external foe. He's nursing his own planetary body. Daisaku Ikeda captures this in his book, the new human revolution, in Nichiren Buddhism, there's no such thing as compassion fatigue. Why? Because compassion isn't something you give away, depleting yourself. It's something you awaken to, like remembering you have another arm. The more you use it, the stronger and more integrated it becomes. This principle even reshapes how practitioners view humanity's long-term challenges. Issues like achieving world peace or reversing climate change can seem overwhelmingly vast. But through the lens of Nichiren's teachings, these aren't external mountains to climb. They're internal landscapes to navigate, each step an exploration of our shared Buddha nature. When the Lotus Sutra describes the Buddha's land as having broad plains, Nichiren Daishonin makes a startling connection. These mountains, valleys, and broad plains, where we live, every one of them, is the treasure land of eternally tranquil light. In other words, the pure land we seek isn't elsewhere. It's here, in this very environment, waiting to be revealed through our practice. A senior Nichiren Buddhism member, reflecting on decades of peace activism, embodies this understanding. People ask how I've avoided cynicism after so many setbacks. I tell them, every country I visit, every conflict zone I enter, these aren't obstacles on the path to peace. They are the path. Each place, with its unique struggles, is another province in humanity's vast treasure land, another facet of our collective Buddha nature yearning to shine. In this light, social engagement in Nichiren Buddhism isn't just sustained, it's sustaining. It's not a burden that tests our spiritual reserves but an integral part of our Buddhist journey, a continuous dialogue with our extended self, a steady revelation of the treasure land that was always here. Whether planting trees, advocating for human rights, or simply listening to a friend's troubles, each action becomes more than compassion. It becomes awakening, a living affirmation that this world, with all its phantoms and treasures, is none other than Nam Myoho Renge Kyo eternally expressed. So when Nichiren Buddhists dive into society's challenges, they're not merely trying to fix external problems. They're engaging in a profound act of spiritual archaeology, brushing away the dust of delusion to reveal the golden Buddhahood that underlies all existence. Their work, tireless, often unseen, is a continuous chant, each action a syllable in the eternal mantra of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And through this living prayer, they're not just sustaining their practice amidst the world's tumult. They're transforming that tumult itself into the very rhythm of enlightenment, revealing that every street, every struggle, every moment is a verse in humanity's unfolding sutra.